Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Pushing Cardboard. I'm Grant Lindenberg, I'm your host, and today's episode is a special bonus episode. It's not our traditional grab bag of topics. Today, it's just a single interview with the designer Carl Paradis, the designer of the No Retreat series, and more to the point, designer of the new game Absolute War from JMT. This is my first attempt at an interview. I apologize in advance for the sound quality. I'm sure that'll get better as I go along, but I hope you enjoy it. It was an interesting chat with Carl, and I got a few insights into his game, and he also drops a few hints on what he's going to be up to next. So there's lots in the pipeline from this fella who. He constantly talks about how hard it is to design games and for such little reward, but he has a lot of ideas and he's got a lot of irons in the fire. So here it is. I hope you enjoy my interview with Carl Paradis. I'm happy to be here with Carl Paradis, the designer of the new game Absolute War. Welcome, Carl.
Thanks. Thank you for giving me the opportunity of rambling a bit about the game and other stuff.
Well, it totally feels like it's a game that everybody's got on the table right now. There's I know lots of people are playing it. Lots of people have questions about it. And to my mind, those questions, they relate mostly to the fact that there's a ton of people playing it because, you know, the newest and best East Front game is something that fits the bill for a lot of war gamers. And then plus, there's a lot of new mechanisms here that I think people are trying to do things an old way, and it's taking a little bit of time for them to kind of wrap their head around some new ways of doing things.
All right. Yeah, I agree about the Eastern Front part. I think I was also lucky because for a reason or another at GMT, when that game came out, there was not that many new multiplayer, two-player game stuff happening in there. They were not issuing a lot of new games, so I was kind of perhaps partly the winner by default. For GMT, because of the supply problems and all of that. And that game was delayed also for a lot of reasons for years and years and years. It started.
Yes. It's. I think that's people have been waiting for it for a while too. That's for sure.
Well, I started it about 10 years ago, just after the retreat. People were asking me for something different, East Front, easier to play. So I decided to use my first original design retreat. The basis for the scale and the map, pretty similar. And then I changed the whole down system about 3 times. At first, I had many more counters than that, and simplified the whole thing. It was too simple, and I had to add a bit complexity. And there was a lot of back and forth in my mind and on paper about that game when I designed it. So after a while, I stopped working on it for a few years. I got back into it, and then the time was right. I decided to finish it then. So it was a really long process. Usually when I make a game inside a year, or I make my mind, I do the research, I do the game, and then it's really this time it took a long time to do.
Given how successful No Retreat Russian Front was, I think a lot of people were surprised that you went back to that topic. I reached out to a few gaming friends and buddies, and to ask them, if I had a chance to talk to Carl Paradis, what would I ask? And one of the big things that kept coming back was that because Russian Front No Retreat was one of the most popular hex and counter games published in the last few years, why did you feel the need to revisit it?
Good question. Usually, it was supposed to be a different scale at first. If you look at if you check a bit in the constant world topics, there is a game called I don't remember exactly. I think it was No Surrender or something like that. It was the first title of the game. It was supposed to be a larger game with more counters. Then I changed my mind about it. And why did I go back? Well, I did not go back to make that game because I started making it right after No Retreat. In 2010, I started looking at it because gamers wanted to have something even more easier to play. That's what I'm trying to do in my games. I'm not always super successfully because I like Chrome in the game, so I tend to do a bit complexify my games, but I really try to get them the simple possible rules possible for the topic. Right? Some people they didn't like my friend's Poland game too much, but yes, it was more complex than even then not that complex because you don't have a lot of counters and all of that. Way more complex than my first No Retreat. But the topic needed like the Italian front game also same thing. I have tweaked the rules to make it work. And by the way, there's not many games that cover the whole Italian front. I know of two Enzio and another old game made in 72, 73. It's really hard to do the whole campaign, make it fun, make it interesting for both players because the historical campaign was not that amusing not to play, but it's a pretty dull static situation. So it was quite a challenge to do that. As for the Russian campaign, I find it easy to do as a topic. So doing a second game with the same system or the same topic for me was. I thought it would be really easy to do, but in fact I found out otherwise because of this. I had the whole new system and everything had to work perfectly. It was a lot of change, a lot of decision. I had 45. With those down rules, I had 45 versions before setting.
Right, yeah.
On the game.
Well, the other sort of subsequently to the original question, the original Victory Point Games edition of No Retreat had only 44 counters or something like that, and then
it was super small. It's the first game I did, almost on a dare because I'm a gamer. I don't consider myself a game designer. I'm a gamer first. I've been 20 years into role-playing games. I've done miniatures. I've done every computer games. I've done it all since I'm a teen in my first game. So in fact, the No Retreat, the GMT game, is complex compared to the very first. As you say, No Retreat with only 40 counters. That was a dare because I saw an article in GMT C3I. Alan Emmerich started Victory Point Games and wanted people doing small games. I said, okay, small games, 40 counters, good challenge. I sat on my proverbial kitchen table, and for real, I took a picture of that recently for some gamers to show them where No Retreat was designed. I took two sheets of paper and I pretty much designed the game there. Okay, there was an evolution and added cards and stuff like that, but I think I still have the scans of my hand-drawn counters and everything, and the game started there. It was not my intention of doing a series or anything like that. I just did a small game for fun, and it
really took off.
It took off. Well, it went downhill because my gaming time was cut to much compared to before.
Given that the one started out so small with Victory Point Games, and then it was slightly expanded with the GMT version, but then the other GMT No Retreat games had a little more chrome and a little more complexity. Yeah. I guess the question is, this design of Absolute War, was that an attempt to kind of return to your sort of earliest ideas as a designer of doing, with the fewest amount of counters and the most stripped down version possible?
That's always, yes, you're correct, but that's always what I'm trying to do. Get the smallest footprint possible for the game, but some games, as I just explained with France and Italy, they need more stuff to work correctly. For example, I'm doing No Retreat 5 right now, so it's the Western Front. And while studying the whole thing, at first I said to myself, I will need tons of rules again. Oh my God, be awful. And no, in fact, it would be I was really surprised to find out, testing the thing, I'm able to make it work with the rules almost as simple as the first retreat for a lot of reasons. And I won't talk about them because it would take too long. Write an article for C3 about that if you'd like it, we'll publish it. So it's always the way I wanted to. Another example, I'm doing a new series after No Retreat 5. I'm doing the No Retreat strategic game because it's a lot of work, especially the cards. I'm doing quadri games, 5 games in one or 3 or 4 games in one. It's called No Retreat Battles.
Yes, I've read about it.
So that would be super simple because I'm able to cut the game into small managing part that I can manage very well. This one I'm making it as a series from the get-go, and I'm doing one game per warrior. So the set rules would be set in stone from the start, as much as I can. And those games will be really small, really fast. Think of No Retreat 2, if you know it, with the one map that you move, and when the front line moves, in this case it will be for small maps. Because my main design philosophy is a bit like chess. I consider that a gamer should not have more maneuver elements to manage than on a chess piece, and not wear more than one general zap, not more than 1 or 2. Most of the games where you play quartermaster, general, tactician, you do too many things. The game plays you. Yeah, too many jobs. The game is playing you. You're not playing the game. Well, it could be fun too, but that's not what I want to do. I want to give player as many meaningful decisions as possible while using the amount of work you have to do in the game as much as possible. And that's why I did that episode. It was by demand, but also gamers, they told me, I had the same feeling. Even No Retreat, if you do a whole campaign, it's fun. It could be a long-winded affair. And the thing is, you still have to compute odds, to count movement point X. So you have a lot of variable. And even on my own game, well, perhaps not No Retreat because I played it a lot, but on some of my other games, if I played them like more than 3 hours in a row, I would get a headache all the time. So absolutely why I decided to do something.
There's a bit of a sweet spot though between I'm no monster gamer at all, but if the number of counters gets too small, like I guess we're talking about granularity here.
Yeah.
I start to feel like, oh my God, if I lose one unit, I've lost the game. It's like I feel like there's less room for error with the less amount of units I have.
You're exactly right. That's a trade-off, and you're right. Small games like No Retreat, if you get really, 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 really unlucky, it can happen. Okay, in the monster game, it will happen perhaps one time out of 1,000, but in a smaller game, it will perhaps happen one time out of 10. That's what I computed from the first No Retreat. One game out of 10 will be broadly broken because of luck and stuff like that, because you don't have a lot of counters.
Yeah.
But there is a good example of game that don't work. And sorry about blasting some games, but I like them anyway. It's the Victory Point game, Napoleonic game.
Right.
They went to great design, and I used a part of some of the ideas in my No Retreat game, but not enough counters. As you said, it's not granular enough. You can play like Borod. You have 20 counters on the map, and you said if you lose one, you're done. But there is a way. There is a way around that too. I'm doing a new. I have a lot of projects. I won't have the time to do them all. I'm doing a Napoleonic series. It's super simple. Oh yeah. I started 2 years ago. It will be probably published. I won't say the publisher yet because I haven't asked him if I could publish it. But it will be super deluxe with wooden counters. But you won't have a lot.
Counters, yeah.
Painted on if I can make it. No stickers.
Yeah.
So write to me on wargame. If you're interested, I will send you some samples. Just take a look at it.
Well, no, that's all good. But let's talk about the game that everybody else is talking about right now. And I wanted to get your thoughts on what were some of the things that people keep asking about that they can't quite get their minds around. And then I have a list of a few here that I've not so much that I've wondered about, but that I've seen the questions come up.
Sure.
So well, one right off the bat that isn't really, it's not a big question, but this is, before we get into those questions, I wanted to ask you about how you do the victory conditions in Absolute War compared to No Retreat, where No Retreat had that mechanism where you had the Russians kind of set a high point marker, and then the game switched when the Soviets come on the offensive, and so the higher the Russians, or the higher the Germans could put the high point, the farther the Russians had to come back, and that was kind of how victory was determined in No Retreat, if I remember right. How do you keep? I guess in situations like the Eastern Front and North Africa, where in history there's a large swing one way and then a push all the way back. How do you keep, as a designer, how do you design it to incentivize the first side to make that big push forward in the first place, instead of just playing defense and waiting for the push back?
Right. Well, the No Retreat game, as you explained, you have a threshold that you have to set. So you're doing better during the rest of the game. So it goes you into attacking more than you will normally logically do. That was not an idea. I took that idea partly from the Total Creek game, if you know it. Total Creek.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but yeah.
They had a kind of axis eye-tight system. It's not the same as mine, but I found the philosophy of it quite interesting. So I used it to go player to do, especially the German, to go as far as he could to get those points. In No Retreat, you have other ways of winning. You have sudden death rules.
Yeah. There's always a sudden. If you can get Russia in another city, or if the Russians can get Berlin or whatever.
So it's about the same with Absolute War. You have those kind of sudden death that you can achieve. And, the other way of doing it in Absolute War compared to No Retreat is you also have some points for each side. They are called war status points, but in the case of Absolute War, it's both sides have their own total. It's not the same total that will get switched back. So it's always on during the game.
Two separate tracks.
Yeah. So instead of having a set point where the Germans, okay, that's it, I'm stopping scoring points, the Russian goes at it, it's more open. So both sides will always compare their totals, the one towards each other, and if you get really, really, really high and the other side is really, really down, then you can win right away. And it's important. Interesting thing, I did not get many questions about the victory condition. That's clear to everyone, kind of understands how they work.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you really have to, if you really want to understand how they work well, you have to study the game, or how you earn those points. I have put a map at the end of the booklet to show where the place that will score the most. Plus, you have a way of managing, controlling more of the point scoring with those major offensive cards, where when you play your major offensive, you have more chance of scoring points. So you kind of take charge of the game in a way, a bit like a No Retreat, but even more so, because if I'm a German, I don't want to attack at Kursk, but I have the cost major offensive. I need those points to stay ahead and keep the initiative. So okay, I will attack anyway, even if perhaps for Retreat it's not a good idea for me to do that. But the game, if I really want to get ahead, I will chance something that I would not usually do.
Right. It seems in Absolute War that the way that the war status points work, they incentivize the German to attack early, because once the pushback comes, the German's not going to be able to score those points as he gets pushed back. So he's got to score them while he can.
Yeah, but if you look at that's where the study part I think about comes into play. It comes into play here. If you look at the reinforcement schedule in the game, the play, Some turns the German will lose some points, some war points. Some Russian will gain some if you have some special historical happenstance. A bit like no retreat, but not the same. The same general idea. But if you look at the end, if you continue the game until the end, if you look at the last years of the war, the Soviets will get a lot of penalties in points because it's considered that the Allies are advancing on the other side. If the Russian were I will decide I won't take those points into account too much because I know I won't lose Moscow, so I won't surrender ever. So I won't put energy in that, and I don't mind. But what will happen at the end of the game if you really don't have enough points, even if you push the German a lot? Usually both go together. But if you're playing to concept that your top point total status point won't be enough, then you will start losing them 4 per turn in the late turn of the game. So it's the allies that are advancing really fast. You can, in fact, both players could lose the game. It won't happen very often, but so you have to, even with the Russian, you really have to get as much points as possible. And one way of getting those points, especially for the German, you surround, you create pockets surround the Soviet Union. So instead, if you just try to go straight at Moscow and you don't pass those points, well, you perhaps capture Moscow, but then the Russian will counterattack you, and you haven't done a lot of surrendering of units. You won't have a lot of war points, and you can lose. It goes the German into doing pincers that probably perhaps not always the best way of taking ground and advancing, but you get those war points. So like the Germans, it's interesting to do a surround at Kiev because you will bag a lot of units, a lot of pockets, and amass a lot of war points for perhaps later on the game, during the game or two. Perhaps if you're lucky, make the Russian surrender. But it's like the no retreat, but
no, I was just going to say that those the war status points you get from the objective cards, where it tells you which territories you're after. That always seems to me in playing so far that feels a little bit like you're getting some outside interference from above. Like if you're playing at a certain level, you're being told to go places you don't want to go, and that instead of like you were talking about, some games you get to wear too many hats. It feels like those cards take one of the hats off your head and put some pressure on you from above.
Yeah, you have a bit of control with the major offensive cards. But yes, those points, some people have complained, oh, well, they are random, I have no control on them. That's useful for me for making a small solitaire module, but that's the way I wanted it. You don't know don't know the future. That, as you said, you don't wear that hat. You're not yet but you have you pretty much know where you can get the point. But sometimes an opportunity will happen, or sometimes you won't be able to score, and that's to deal with that. I added some variability there compared to no retreat, because I always like
it.
I always like removing control from gamers, and they don't like it, but I love to do that. The thing with
no, if I wanted absolute control, I'd play chess.
Right, but you just made how do you say that in English? Calembour. You made a joke because you said absolute control, and you're talking about absolute war. But I don't know the name.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, same thing with the funny happenstance, and I'm not demeaning anyone, but when I made the game, I did spreadsheets with all the odds for all the cards, because that allowed me to refine the combat table a lot, because I have 52 cards, so it's like a huge combat table with 52 entries. Like you're rolling a 50-sided die, okay? So I was able to make a lot of granularity into the combat result because of that. And I went perhaps a bit overboard. I did a lot of variety, but you don't have any computation anyway. You just draw a card and look at the result. I said to myself, hopefully no player will take all the cards, take all the results, and make tables with everything detailed, with all the odds and all the probabilities, because the goal of the game is to keep you guessing. A few gamers did and posted that darn statistic about.
I was going to say.
No, don't do that.
The way gamers' minds work, that somebody's going to do it, but it's up to the rest of us to not look at it if we what I enjoyed about the use of cards as the CRT is that they are just like a CRT, but it allows you to not have to use the 2d6 distribution of results, or even a straight 1d6. Like, you can make the distribution of results however you like, and I like the fact that it's buried in a deck that I don't understand exactly how the distribution is.
And as a game designer, that way I can make it really granular, and I needed that granularity because the rest of the game is pretty rough. The points on the units, it's a differential system, so it's really rough. I think that kind of more evolved combat table with a lot of entries, I was able to smooth things a bit. One guy that did the whole study, and it's really impressive that the way he did it. It's a lot of work. I said to him, "But why did you do it? You really needed to adapt." He said, "No, it's my opponent that refused to play the game. He was not aware of exactly what the combat table were done." So,
right? Okay. Yes. Some people just have to have it.
Yeah, okay, fine. In fact, I did the same when I designed it, and I asked for a moment. I said, "Okay, I will put that in the game." I thought, "No, I won't do it anyway. I'm sure someone else will." So that's what happened. But I did for the victory condition. The victory. I could have not put the victory map, but I think this one was important because the player, they don't have much control over the victory location. They randomly get, at least they have an idea of where the important part, or that was a must for the game. I think that's why I put the map that on to have the viewer.
So getting on to a few things that I've seen people ask about, one of the things I've seen people ask about is the support markers, and when you're attacking, you can get support from an adjacent area, but on defense, you can only have it from the same area. That all seems to make sense to me, but it does seem to it's like one of those questions that I've seen people ask again and again, even though the answer is right there.
Kind of, I see something, then I said that's not true for everything. You have an exception. Some people, they don't like it. I tried to write it different ways, and it was always a mess. So that's the best I could arrive with as a text. I recently added a few words here and there with what the players told me. So I have using an old version that is I did put online the last version this morning. With the previous one, most of the questions stopped, in fact, about that. And about the support, if you are in defense and you can support an area, but from an adjacent city, the large exit, I explained in the rules that it's because of the network infrastructure, the rail hubs that were near those cities. It's easier for the defender to reinforced places. Some people ask me, "Oh well, why didn't you put counter blows like in no retreat in the game?" But in fact, they are there. An area you can have two units in an area, so you can only attack one. The other one adjacent to it will give it support. So people tend to. That's interesting. There's a way. There's a good time to stack units, and there is a bad time to stack units. People will try to stack units because you will use less support marker, because both units together, you don't have to pay a support marker to support your troops. But it's counterproductive in a way, because especially on defense, it's better to spread out your troops. But then it costs you a lot of support marker, and perhaps you won't have enough when you will attack. So it's a kind of
when you attack,
It's a kind of catch-22 decision you have to make. Do I stack my units? Do I spread them around? When do I do that? Do I have enough support marker to help, even if they're not stacked? If they are not stacked, I will be more able to defend against the pincer movement in advance of the enemy. But Anyway, there is a lot of argument and counter-argument about a lot of tactics in the game, and that's the way I really wanted to give the players those decisions. So some guys would say, "Oh, I prefer to stack my troops." So one said, "Well, I prefer to spread them around and attack less often." So there is all that involved in the game, and yes, it's really different. You have to understand how the rules work. Most of the time, I was able to explain all the questions just by pointing in the rules the answer. It's not perfect. I try not to repeat myself too often, but the important points were perhaps not super well explained. It's the first rule set of a first new system, so that I expected that. So I'm doing small corrections to help, and I think the next game will be better. But it's a bit like it's a new system. It's a brand new.
Oh, it's very new.
Type. I expected this phenomenon. I'm not surprised. So it's all good.
Just the way you are handling stacking, for example, in this game is different than what a lot of gamers would be used to, with there being the maximum of 2 stacks, but that includes both sides. So it could be two Germans or a German and a Russian. That's a little different than most games. And then also having the importance of which in a single stack, which unit is on top is also is not something we see a lot in games. So there's a lot for players to wrap their heads around just in terms of stacking in this game.
Yeah, just speaking about stacking. Another thing I want to mention before I forget, during the design process, and that delayed the game for a year, my developer said to me, "Oh, it's a bit complex because you add in a lot of stuff. People won't. Not everyone will like it, especially first-time gamers." I said, "Yeah, you're right." He said to me, "You have to do a basic game list." I said to myself as a goal, I need to get everything down in 4 pages. Even if not everything is on those 4 pages, everything you need really to know, to play, and to refer to are there. That's what I did, but at the first few line of and I'm not the only one that did that point, because I see that in the rule set. It said write the first 7. Read casually the first 7 pages of the basic game rule, the regular game rule. Well, it's not 4 pages anymore. I said, casually read. You don't have to remember anything. Just keep explaining the cards and explain the counters and everything. So just to have a rough idea. If not, the basic game rules, of course, would have been far longer. But a lot of people that complain about that, oh, well, it's not easy to learn. I never said it was that easy to learn, though. It's easy to play.
That's an important distinction.
Yeah, and that's what perhaps I should have made the case more strongly, especially if you know X country with CRC. I played them for like 40 years. Okay, I found those games super easy. I've been playing them for almost all the same rules for 40 years, with small differences. But now you are having a game that is not an area game, not a base game, a bit of both. You have a lot of new stuff, so of course you have to get used to that. But people that were complaining that the game was too complex, have you played the basic game? Oh no, I don't. I haven't played that. I always play. I played the regular from the start. I could try the down basic game. You have no stacking. You have no cards. It's bare bones. It plays super fast, super fast. So I'm able to teach that game to a newbie 20 minutes. You can set up the game.
I think the main thing is it's easy to play, not easy to learn, and part of that not easy to learn is because a lot of it is relearning things that we already knew from old hex and counter games, or even the changes. Like I can't think off the top of my head of another game that's basically an area game, but that also has a few hexes in it, and the way that hexes work a little bit differently than the areas, and even then melt down a few brains.
Yeah, and you can argue that anyway. What is an area? It's a large X without straight sides.
Yeah, or the flip. What's a hex? It's just an area as well. It's just the more I looked at it, it was just like the hexes were a way of saying these are special areas that have slightly different properties than the other areas.
And one of my pet peeves in area games is I don't like the way they do their areas. The straight lines, unless perhaps for a naval warfare game, the areas often don't look natural. They don't mean anything on the map. What I did for my game, because I'm doing graphics too. After 10 years, I've learned how to graphics because I was a bit tired by trying to tell to the graphic artist what I wanted to as a design, or doing it on a pen and paper and then scanning that. And I did that once, and then I said I'd have to learn Illustrator and Photoshop and do
Illustrator. Yeah.
As most, I do mostly Illustrator and do as much as possible of my stuff. So when I do a game for GMC, the rule set is almost the same as what you get, but we do make it better. But it's the same layout. If I showed you from afar my prototype compared to the GMC final result, it would be hard for you to see the difference. Of course, the GMC does stuff much better because the last 10% of those graphics and things, it would take me 80% of effort. So, but they are great artists and they do it really, really great for me. So what I did, get back to the subject, I took my no retreat map, and I used that as a basis to draw the area, just to give me an idea with the hexes and the outline. You probably can guess it a bit if you look at the map. That gave me areas with the right size. And the way it confirmed to the terrain, I checked with the actual World War II front maps of the Eastern Front, make sure that I could replicate all the front line at specific time with my area. I made them as natural looking as possible. I think I got it right on that kind of map compared to other area games. People seem to like the map a lot.
Yeah, people seem to like the map a lot for sure. Well, I mean, people like the map and the whole physical components of the game.
I'm a physical component. I'm a physical component, not all my games. I buy 2 sets of counters and I double tick all the counters because I found that most of the games they don't counter are too thin. Look at Euro; they don't do that. You don't have counters in Euros as they do for a lot of war games. We are getting too nice. Not too nice. Getting too used to lower quality stuff, but it's changing now. Okay, if you have a magazine game, it's sure you have thin counters. You have to fit that in a magazine format. But myself, I like big counter with rounded edges and mounted board and cards.
Yeah, and you see that a lot more now in games that. In any games that have a lower number of counters, they seem to make them thicker, bigger, and that pre-rounded where they punch out so easily.
A lot more since 4 or 5 years ago. The pre-rounded ones, the first one I've seen were from an old company. It's Rand Associate Games. All their games, they did game about Italian front and all kind of stuff, North Africa. Their game were already rounded counters and were in the 70s. But anyway, the first game I saw doing that was Twilight Struggle by GMC.
Right.
It went on just before my game, and that was the first one, mounted board, rounded counters. So I said to GMC, that's what I want for my game. And they did it. And I was probably one of the first war games doing it that has that kind of quality at the time. But it's after seeing what they were able to do with Twilight Struggle, I said, you guys, you must do that for my game. I was really happy.
I know there's a lot of worry about the graying of the hobby and all that, and I'm definitely on the graying end. I'm in my 50s, but when I was 20, the half-inch counters, I could read them across the table. I didn't have glasses back then. Now that I'm in my 50s, I appreciate the 5/8 inch counters or larger for sure.
Oh, same with me. I'm the same age as you, and since I made most of my games, I make them for myself to play first. And that's why I do those large counters, and I will try to keep the same factor for all my games. One other pet peeve I have that you won't see in my games unless I add that on the X numbers. I so create 8 hex numbers. So all my no retreat X-based games, you don't have any numbers in the X. If you don't need those numbers, please don't put them in. We're not in the 80s anymore. Everyone plays with that. So, okay, if you have a game like Combat Commander, you need the X numbers, so that put them in. And they did a really nice job. Small, they are small, not too tiny, not too big. It's perfect. But sometimes you see games that all you see are those X's, and you don't need them in most games. If you need, then put them in, but not by default like a lot of people do. Don't know why. It's kind of became a kind of a tradition, and
convention.
They look better that way. Well, yes, you don't need them. Anyway.
No, I've got a lot of little bugs about maps. There's a lot of maps I see that have where there's too much art and not enough functionality, and
counter design.
Sometimes I'm trying to see what the map is, where the hex is, and
I'm not an ergonomist, but I mean some counter design. A lot of companies are putting too much stuff on the counter, so I like really as simple as possible.
Sometimes there's just too much color on the counter, and it's just you can't focus on the usually on most counters there's like 2 numbers, 3 numbers that you really need to see all the time, and with all that color sometimes it's hard to focus on what you're trying to see.
If you have more than 2 colors on the counter, well, okay, let's say 3, but 2 is better. You have a problem. The French game, the game is by I don't know why. I have most game made in France by French speaking designer. The French seems to really they like complex counters with a lot of. It's too much. So,
the only multicolored counters that I find really clear are if you know the game games by Kim Kanger. He's very good at he can. Put some drawings on a counter and still let you see what the counter's all about.
Yes, I know Kim very well. I really like his counter, like his Burma game with the 3 sides of counters.
That I love that. That game is fantastic, and the map is maybe my favorite map of all maps.
Yeah.
And also his Jin Bien Phu game, he's got like one thing I normally hate on counters is pictures of actual soldiers because I just don't need that. But in that game, there's those pictures or drawings, and yet you can still easily see what the counter is all about and what its values are. So, he's got a knack with counters and maps.
Just one last thing about that, and I have a few comments about the problems player had with the game. One guy was able to do small strangers and pictures on counters that look amazing, and I have all his game because I collect his game because of his graphic work. Is the late Rick Barber. Made some counters. Those from a mini company, Clash of Arms and others. Those are exceptional, and they are all different, and the maps, and I love this stuff. I absolutely. I was really sad when he passed away. I was still talking with him very often about game graphics and stuff like that. Suddenly, I had no news, and I was really sad.
He's one of those. I think it's guys like him and Kim Kanger that are the exceptions that prove the rule. I think a lot of people are trying to do what they do, but it just ends up looking like a dog's breakfast. The one big problem, the one big thing with the game, and that's why I scrapped that in the basic game, is all the event cards. All those event cards are like kind of smaller rule books, and you have that's the part of the game besides writing the rule book that has, which is something I usually I love doing the playbook, but writing rules I hate that. So much work and it's not fun. Whatever. Not to mention, it's no matter how good you are at writing rule books, it's the thing that gets criticized the most.
So I was expecting that, and even worse. In fact, I'm surprised that I don't get more slack. But it's the first, as I said again, it's the first game of a series, first system, first rule book. It will be better next time. I take notes, and I already improve. Adding, not changing the rules, but adding some clarification.
Well, that's the thing about the cards. There's only so much room on a card to, when the cards are an extension of the rules, as they often are in card-based games. You've only got so much room. You have to be very concise.
That's a problem also, because the most work the game besides the rules were the cards. Each card, I had about 20 versions of each card. You only have a small space. You have to. I'm getting better at it. At first, when I did the first retreat, I was not that good. I'm getting really good at getting a concise idea in not a lot of text. But there is a counter problem with that. Just a few hours ago, I explained to a gamer one specific card and said, "Well, why didn't you put that sentence added to the card? It would have been easier to understand." Not that the card was not easier to understand, but the guy was extrapolating some stuff that was not on the card. I said to him, "Well, I only have 3 or 4 lines of text. You're right, but I don't have the space." Yeah. So that's a problem with the card. And you have to check every card to make sure that they are that they will work together, that people won't find some way of breaking the system with a combination of cards. And, putting all the cards, all the text together, I had to put all the graphics, find all the pictures for the 100 cards, and I put an historical caption that made sense with the card title and all of that. It's a lot of work. If I did game without any event cards like this, I think I could put easily 2 games a game. Because it's space, counters, dice. Okay, there you go, next one. Because of the cards,
it's an interesting problem for you with the.
I like doing those cards.
When people extrapolate when people extrapolate from a card something that isn't actually in the rules, on the one hand you're saying, well, you're making up rules in your mind that aren't actually there, but on the other hand you want to be sensitive to the fact that you'd rather make it not possible for someone to extrapolate what's not there. It's a fine line.
And I could have played it safe with the cards. I'm not stupid. I could have done lane events, but I wanted to add stuff really fun. So I expected that there will be some gray areas in some of the rules. The worst culprit of it is the rules in the game that says if you have a rule conflict between the card and the context and the rules, the context is precedent. Okay, it's fine. But then people will read the card text and will kind of make up conflict that doesn't exist in their head and said, well, okay, there's a conflict. So the card is back. No, you said that I can. No, I can't. Well, it's a fine line. You don't have a lot of text you can put in the card. So sometimes I say, well, ask, I will answer you just if I can. Usually,
sometimes when somebody reads a sentence, they get an idea in their mind. A sentence can be read 2 ways sometimes, and if you've got a preconceived idea, you're not going to be open to all the different meanings that sentence might have.
Exactly, but what can you do? I will have a frequently asked question, and there is only a few cards that cause problems like that. But sometimes it's as you said, the person won't understand the cards properly. Well, that's not proper. He understands it a different way. And in fact, the way I did the game is pretty robust. You could probably do 2 or 3 rules all wrong, and the game will play fine. Even if you need to interpret one card or 2 or 3. So as long as both sides interpret it the same way, it's fine. I haven't seen one example of a rule that if you really messed up completely because it was not very well explained, the game would be broken away. I haven't seen that happen yet. Because the important part of the rules come back because it's power supply. It's super easy. So it's mainly the card aspect and the interaction in the card that cause problem, or the fact that sometimes I've chosen mechanics in the game that are really, really, really different than what we're used to. And then people made mistake. And was it a good idea, or should I compromise my design to make it easier on the players? I decided not to. I mean, you're that way.
Well, yeah, no, but what I find interesting with the game so far and the reception to it, with the forums on BGG are very active. I assume it's probably the same thing on Consim World. But what I'm noticing is there's a large volume of questions, but they aren't producing. They're not producing hardly any volume of errata. So
I had a lot of people reading. If you look at the game credit, I have 2 GMC proofers. I have a lot of proofers in the game, a lot of testers.
yeah,
Not everyone some people said, "Oh, I understand the game perfectly well." No problem. It's a very well done rule set. Another one said, "I don't understand anything." Okay, fair enough. That's the question. I'm there to answer. If I can make the rule better.
yeah.
There is one.
Well, that's my point exactly. It's the people like there's people that aren't understanding it just because it's so new. But it's when they work through it, either with you or with other answers that they get. It's not like the rules have to change. It's just that the people have to get their head around them.
And I tried a new rule system with bullet points. It's not the same as. I'm sure that if I would have used my old no retreat game rule system, I would have received at least 3 times the number of questions. I consider that new system of rules is much better. The system I want to use, but if I had done that with a no retreat game, people would have said nothing. But since, as you said, it's a lot of new concepts, and it will be refined in the if the game is well received and GMC likes the sales they get, I will do other games using that system. Just to prove I'm not a one-trick pony. But I have other stuff. I have other game coming. Well, one thing I will change. I've seen that get people mixed up. I will definitely change in the next game. Even if it's a small thing, it's important. The support counter, the support, they have support, not the support, excuse me, the mobile armor marker. Because you have attack markers on the other side, it's done. You have support marker on the other side, it's done, flip is done. But the mobile tank marker are different, and that's a mistake. I should not have done that. Because it's
right. Just for anybody listening, on the mobile armor markers, it's armor on one side and mobile on the other, and that really gives people the idea that maybe it flips from one to the other, rather than it being 2 separate markers.
That's a mistake. I should not have done that, and nobody told me anything about those markers. They didn't like it the way they were, but just because they are not the same as the other. It's not a good idea to do that.
Well, and they are sort of related because they both both have an impact on exploitation and your pincer maneuver and things like that. To me, the biggest volume of questions have to do with the mobile exploitation and the pincer attack. Would you and creating pockets is?
That's correct.
Would you agree that that's sort of where the most questions come from?
It's not. They are. What's in the rules explain what they do, but it's not. It was not a good idea to do them the way I did. I realize that now. What I will do in my next game, the mobile, I will do both. I will do a combo of both, but not the same. Marker will still be named mobile. It will have a tank on the graphic, not the truck. And on the other side, it will be a done marker too.
Right.
So but it will be used a bit differently, but it's the same effect, but more streamlined with the other markers. I want reverse.
It's such an important part of the game.
I want reverse engineer that in the Russian game because it will change the number of done markers and it will unbalance the game. So I won't touch the Russian game. The next one I want to do is probably North Africa, but the whole thing from Suez to Tunisia. In that game, I will have the marker as well. Perhaps I will use a truck for the mobile marker, but I will scrap the whatever. The other side will be a done side. But they will work a bit differently in the North African game. The stacking will not be the same. You have more units per area. Those markers you will buy. You will have a supply point, and with the supply point, you will decide what kind of of marker you want to buy. It will be a bit different.
Oh, interesting.
There will be will be a fourth kind of marker that is not in the Russian front. It's not the same theater, but they will all have a downside on the other side. I want two kind of combat markers that don't behave the same. That's the big mistake. That's the big mistake. If there's something that I would have done differently, that's the thing. Those markers.
Well, the exploitation and the pincer maneuver. That's sort of like that's a core thing that people look for in an East Front game with the to create encirclements or pockets, and I think everybody was interested to see how you were going to do it in a area game. So it's sort of a key part of the game.
I think it works, but it's not as elegant as it should have been. So this one I will tweak a bit. What I will do also next month, because I'm waiting for all the questions to answer. I will put online a new version of the living room. I won't change much, but at the end of the rules, I kept one blank page when the booklet was made, so I could add stuff. So
right.
I posted on Board Game Geek one last version for the next month, for February. On the last blank page, you have the counter errata and the small errata for the combat table, the mod turn. And the rest I reserve for add some more explanation about how the Spencer exploitation works. But it will be a discussion. It's like I'm speaking to you. I said, well, okay, here's the way it works, not in real life, but if I'm explaining it to you live. So I will use that page to explain those that concept and a few other ones. Out of terms, not in rule terms, but in discussion terms. You can also
once you get your head around it all makes sense. But it's I think it's the biggest sort of leap people are making.
But I think it was what you don't see is the wheel behind under the wheel. I changed the whole combat system three times. So it was worse. Worse than that before. It's super simplified. I had trouble with that. All that. But it's new. It's a new concept. You have to test it. And it won't work. I changed something else break because I changed another thing, and then it has all to fit together as a big package. And I was tweaking stuff to make the gameplay balance, especially work well, because that's really, really important for me to have a game that really balanced, if possible, with different playing style.
I totally agree.
I put a lot of effort in
playtesting.
I put a lot of effort in playtesting. That's why some of the monster gaming are suspicious to me, because I know that you don't have the time to test everything. Hopefully, hopefully it will work. If it doesn't, the design will say, especially the late game. You see the game, a lot of games, they work super nicely up to the middle part, and then what happened? Well, probably they not test it much, and it's fine. It's the way it is. It's a small hobby. We don't have a lot of resources. You do the best you can. So whatever.
Before we finish up, when I did want to ask you about, I had heard that in this system that you were going to go on to North Africa first. So I had a couple questions about that, mostly related. I mean, when most of us think about North Africa, we think about sort of the attempts at sweeping maneuvers and cutting off supply and things like that. So is that going to be? Are you going to handle that sort of the same way as this with the pincer maneuver and the pockets, or supply just seems to take on a whole nother level in North Africa. What are your thoughts there?
My thought is the same as I know Retreat 2. If you look at my game, do you know the No Retreat 2 game with the small map?
Yeah. It's the one where you have 5 different maps and you move from map to map. Are you going to do one long map, or are you going to do?
I'm not sure yet. At least 2 maps probably, because I don't want a long map because it takes too much table space, and a lot of space is wasted anyway. I did my small map at the time because almost all the North African games. Oh my God, most of the maps historically was not used. they stayed within 160 miles of the coast.
Other than if you're
even
other than the part where you're trying to get in behind
even
it.
the flank move, they didn't go very far because anyway you had no road. It was rocky desert.
Right.
The truck could not pass there, etc., etc., etc. So it will be the same thing.
Right.
I will put the important area, and I won't put a map where 2/3 of the map is never used, like most of those games. There's a new North Africa game done by GMC. Great game. Look at the game. You don't have an El Alamein scenario. The game has a lot of counters, big map, and you look at the El Alamein map because it was done all on the same same proportion. So your El Alamein front is like 4 X's. Okay, you will have about like 50 counters on each side. Okay, let's say 25. It's not, no, it won't work. It would be dull, it would be stupid. It would, 4 X's and you do El Alamein. Oh, yeah, sure. Almost all the games are like this. If you look at old games like Camping for North Africa, made by the guy who made Russian Campaign, if you look at the map, that's one of the best North African maps. If you look at this map, check the map, it looks like all the other maps of North Africa, but if you look at the terrain and you look at all the other maps done this time, he has done a distortion of about 4 times in the El Alamein portion of the map. So the map is like 4 times wider than it should be. And it works perfectly because when you are there, you still have maneuvering space, even if the map is distorted. And the same with the south part of the map is completely distorted, but it's because it was not used. So it works.
Have you seen Ted Racer's game, the Dark Sands? He does sort of a similar thing where the map is it's in kind of 3 panels where the 2 outside are at one scale and the middle is at half that scale.
But interesting you speak about that game because he explained in his rules, I'm doing the same as No Retreat. Separate maps. Probably he found that I had a good idea. But sometimes I'm changing the scale on mine. But in fact, I did the same in my map. Not all the maps have the same scale, but probably he never realized it. This game is great, but he has the same problem as the other one. El Alamein is too small. In fact, it's so small that he did not even the trouble to make an El Alamein scenario because it will look completely foolish. And that's the only problem I have with that game, which is really, really I like the chip pool. Activision's really nice.
Yeah, I like that part. I haven't played the game through yet.
You will like
it. I did pull it out enough to look at.
But look at the El Alamein map. Instead of using that map to make El Alamein a bit bigger size, because you have no choice. If you want to make a game interesting, you don't put 50 counters on 4x wide line. Use all the space.
Yeah, well, I'm going to check out that one you mentioned. The
American Campaign, Jetco game, Australian game.
Yeah, that's being redone by Compass or.
Oh yes, it was redone by Compass. Yes, great. Completely distorted. Right.
Yeah, it came out as in a deluxe version.
So
this has been great, Carl. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about with regards to Absolute War or any of your other games?
Well, as I said, I'm coming up with a Napoleonic game system. I think if you're interested, I will send you some detail. That's just only one thing I wanted to say about that system. We were speaking about not enough counters in the game. That game will have really not a lot of counters. It's like Australia. It's not. You won't even have 20 counters per side. It's wooden counters. You have they are like rectangles and squares. Each armor is.
You give me every opportunity to lose quickly when you have so few counters.
But not in that game.
That only means I get to play it again.
Not in that game, because if you look at most Napoleonic battles, what happens, it's very rarely, but for some exceptions, most of the formations were intact until the end of the battle where they retreated. They had a lot of loss of stuff like that, but the core was still core, and you rarely saw everyone run away and disappear. But I know that counters, you have an assumption that the country is not there, but still you have still troops on the map. But when you don't have a lot of counters, it don't work. So in that game, it would be very, 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 very difficult to eliminate a counter in the game.
If that's the case that you're using so few counters, does that mean you're going to go with Is this the one where you mentioned it was going to be painted blocks
painted
or
blocks.
something instead?
The painted on blocks, if possible. I don't want stickers, but the graphics is really, really simple. And I'm using also the combat tables are on the cards. You have a line for assault and a line for fire. It's picture. It's not under.
I'm your audience. I love blocks, whether it's painted or stickers. Too. I even love cubes. I love I love those long ones that came in the big Napoleon game from Bo and Simmons. I can't remember the name.
You had Austerlitz, you had Austerlitz, and you also had Marengo.
Yeah, or even the North Atlantic game that came out this year, Atlantic Chase. It has those long sort of extended blocks as well. I love the tactile of all that. I'd always rather have that than miniatures any day. I know there's a lot of minis games out there, and God bless them, let them do it. But the wood blocks just feel better in my hands for some reason.
So I have tons of thousands of painted miniatures, Napoleonic and stuff like that. So I like that also. But I think you will like it. I have cubes. I have cubes also, but it's a chip pool activation system. A bit like the old, it's an old game made by Victory Games, 3 April. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I use something similar. Like if I'm doing French against Austrians, I have blue cubes. Each time I put out a blue cube, I can activate some French units and white Austrians. I have orange cubes also. When you pick up an orange cube, it's a battle. You do the combat phase. Both sides.
Oh,
so you never know when the combat will happen. I have to wait on that.
That's
a bit like across 3 April.
That reminds me of that.
Across 3 April.
The Kim Kanger game you talked about earlier about Kim Kanger's Burma game. That it's a chit pull game, but you're not pulling
units.
The chits don't represent units. They represent basically sequences, parts of the sequence of play. So you never know if you're going to attack first or reinforce first.
I don't have
I find that
I don't have
exciting.
a sequence of play. There won't be a sequence of play in the game. Pull out the cube.
Right, it comes out of the bag.
That's the way I do it.
Yeah, right. Comes out of the
you have a cube, you can activate it depending on your commander 1 to 3 units that are adjacent and stuff like that. Or you can use a cube to rally units. But when you rally a unit, it's not automatic. It's not something you can control. So what I did is you put the cube on your unit, and it doesn't rally right away. It's rallying mode right now, so you cannot do anything but rally. And when you get a cube for a combat, just before the combat begins, you try to rally your unit. That way, even if an opponent attacks you, okay, you're rallying, will he be able to rally back from the other? Will it be okay or not? And I have a way of showing the fog of war with the battle smoke and stuff like that. But again, it would be super simple.
Oh, that's a bit like that old thing where the counters, you don't know what their value is until you turn them over to use them. There's a little bit of variability.
I'm using part of that ploy, and you have a strict order of play like artillery fire, and then the cavalry attack, and then infantry defense or fire back. But it will be super simple, no combat table, no dice, only pictures. Like even the combat table, the combat result with small pictures, and you have a small card and see what kind of each picture do, and they are related to the pictures on the units also. Yeah, you have a small picture, a small horse. If it's infantry attacks, it won't do anything, but if it's cavalry, then you have an effect. It's all kind of rock, paper, scissors with everything integrated. And I'm not using hexes, I'm not using squares, I'm not using areas, I'm using something completely different that nobody did before. It's interesting. And the way I want to do the battle, I want to do the battle, my main goal was not a lot of pieces, but like you said, people won't. If you lose a piece, you won't have the problem where you lose a piece, you lose the game, because it'll be very difficult to get the unit out of the map unless your army is demoralized. So, and when you do casualties, it's on the army roster that you do that. Army morale will lower, and the lower your army morale is, at one point your unit will disintegrate. Your army will start to disintegrate. It's like it's Waterloo and it's 6 p.m. and that's it. You lost. it's the way I will do
Right.
things. So I think it would be interesting to play. Just the play balance I have to manage because of the chip pool. I have to make sure that I don't unbalance too much the game. And each game, like my last New Retreat game, you will have leader cards. So if I have Napoleon, I have the number of cards I get because I have 10 cards, or the number of blocks I can move when I take my unit. It's tailored to my leader. Like for example, Napoleon has a small abilities, tactical abilities. One of his abilities is when you draw a blue cube, it's your cube to move. You can put it on his leader card, and then you can do that up to 3 blue cubes. You can reserve your move, let the enemy make his mistakes, and then you can
yes.
do a 2 or 3 activation. But it's Napoleon. Each leader will have 2 special abilities. That would be really simple. I really want to do something super simple. Like the cards, it would be mainly pictorial, but not too many pictures. Like I have some games, those are Normandy made in France, the World War II kind of miniature game, but it's all counters. They have put up a lot of expansion. Double Pig Games did that. Those are Normandy, and they have too many icons. It's too much. Too much of a good thing. I can give me 6 maximum. I will remember them during the game. Not 45. It's too much. It's nice.
We're all Goldilocks in this, right? It's like everybody's got a sweet spot that's just right.
So all in all, it's a game no dice, event card, chip cube activation, and not a lot of blocks, but you won't lose much blocks during the game anyway. So rest assured, it won't go that way. I really wanted to keep most of the units intact if possible during the game.
And you have a publisher for it already?
I had.
Oh,
it's a long story. It's a game that was asked. A French publisher asked me to do a game for them. They called me and said, "Do you want to do a game?" I said, "Sure, I will do that." Then I realized that if I want to have quadri games and a lot of series, they are probably too small to do that. And anyway, eventually they do a lot of translation. If they like the game in English, they will probably be able to publish it in French, no problem. So, and GMT, I had too many projects going with them right away. So you're too busy, you won't be able to make the game fast enough. So I said, yeah, okay, I will do it with somebody else, because that's after my New Retreat 5, I really want to do that political series. I've been working on that for 2 years. It's another company. It's another publisher, but they are doing quality work. So it would be really interesting. If it happens, that the game will be physical quality of the games will be amazing. We'll see it this year.
Well,
you will hear about it this year for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for talking to me today, Carl. I think Absolute War has been a huge success, and I think we're going to see it played all over the place. So thanks for talking about it.
Great. It was great. And if you want to know about my Napoleon game, I will send you my pros and stuff like that, so you can give me your input on it.
I will. I'll drop you a line later. All right. Thanks very much.
Bye. Have a good time.
Bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I really look forward to seeing what Carl does next with his Napoleonic game, as well as the No Retreat edition on the Western Front. A lot of good things coming from Carl. Well, that wraps up another episode of Pushing Cardboard. You can look for us at pushingcardboard.com, where we have where you can comment on any of the episodes or topics or articles. And if you register with the website, you'll be able to join in the discussions at our forums as well. You can also reach me at cardboardpusher on Twitter. And if you enjoy the podcast, please give us a review and a rating on your favorite podcast vendor's site. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.